They also say that the soldiers drove nuts. We see that in a lot of movies, in books, like Apocalypse Now. I don't know if you saw it. And most of the time, the soldiers are represented as actually they kind of drove nuts. They became crazy in this war. You also have to know that two-thirds of the men were volunteer. And still today, the people wonder why America was in Vietnam. Was it for a good cause? For what was it? So this created protests. What were the consequences? First, I'll show you a graph of the U.S. death per year during the Vietnam War. As you can see, the highest death was in 1968, 60,592 deaths in 1 year, which made a total of 60,000 lives taken in the Vietnam War, but U.S. lives. And this graph shows you the Vietnamese lives taken versus American lives taken in Iraq. As you can see, it's almost impossible to, there's a huge difference between both. And it counted about 2 million lives in Vietnam War, Vietnamese lives in Vietnam War. In 1973, the Power of Act got enabled, which meant that the president had to ask permission in order to operate abroad. But how did it happen at home? How did the people react? What was their behavior? What did they think about this war? So, first of all, who were the protesters? The protesters were students, first of all. The first ones were students. By the late 1950s, the student group SPU was created, which was for the reconstruction of an American society. By 1964, SDS is a Student for Democratic Society. They also worked with the Civil Rights Movement. And then also very common, very known student group is the Berkeley students. They created a group called FSM, which was the Free Speech Movement. Here you can see a picture of them in action. Then by 1965, when the US started bombing North Vietnam, it created a huge protest, huge gathering on Washington DC, 20,000 protesters against what was happening. Then the other very famous one is the Civil Rights Movement under the leader Martin Luther King. They were for peace in Vietnam, of course, and by 1968 they created a huge protest against the Vietnam War. And here you can see a picture. No Vietnamese ever called me a nigger because there were also lots for other rights in the civil rights movement than Vietnam War. By November 16th, so about 5 years later, 500,000 people gathered in Washington DC. This is 25 times more than the last protest in Washington DC. So this means that the movement is growing and people are more and more aware of what is happening. From 1969 to 1973, the movement is growing, but of course when it grows and it gets known throughout the world, the movement also creates enemies, the middle class Americans. So finally the protesters get a term commonly known today as, here you can see some pictures of for example, this one says, give me one reason why I should fight in Vietnam. So people wonder why. In this picture you can see a monk committing suicide in front of the American government to show his protest. But then, who were those hippies? Where did they come from? What was their purpose, their philosophy? How did they behave to all those problems in Vietnam? And so, first of all, you have to know that hippie is an African American term for awareness, because the hippies were aware of what was happening in the world. So, what they did is they stood against what was happening. They were aware of what was happening. But who were they? There were mothers, there were students, there were soldiers' wives, and most of the time the hippies were recognized by their long hair, for example, or their sandals, or of course barefoot, depending when, and then their colorful clothes, and sometimes dirty clothes, etc., etc. By 1963, a certain Mr. Laughlin created an organization, organized a ceremony. It was called the Red Dog Experience. It was only meant for 50 people at the time, but its purpose was to listen to unique music genre. It was called psychedelic rock, and to have psychedelic experiences. In 1965, the Red Dog Experience expands. The scene gets created, the rock scene gets created with very famous artists named such as Janis Joplin, The Grateful Dead, or Quicksilver Messenger Service, and lots of other bands. LSD, as you all know, is a psychedelic drug used most at the time. It's a drug that makes you hallucinate, and as they say, it's a drug that makes you see life in a better way and love people, etc., etc. But by 1966, the drugs become illegal, which creates more protest and more will trying it. But what was the purpose of music during all the time? What did music do? What was the role of music during at that time? So first of all, 1967, Summer of Love. Summer of Love was in San Francisco. 100,000 people gathered, all together, coming from the four corners of the United States, because they all heard the song, "If you're going to San Francisco," you all know the song, right? It says, "Be sure to wear some flowers in your hair. If you're going to San Francisco, you're going to meet some gentle people there." Also, the New York Times states the hippies' philosophy as, "Do your own thing, wherever you have to do it, and whenever you want. Drop out. Leave society as you have known it. Live Italy. Blow the mind of every straight person you can reach. Turn them on, if not to drugs, then to beauty, to love, honesty, and fun." So the movement gets famous, they get sponsors, they get fans, but of course when you have sponsors and fans, you have enemies as well. So critics, you have a lot of critics because they are anti-work, pro-drug, etc., etc. So then, very famous festival at the time, Monterey Pop Festival in 1967, 90,000 people gathered. They gathered all together, it's the beginning of Summer of Love, and they're all there to listen to bands such as Janis Joplin, Jimi Hendrix, Otis Redding, the Mamas and the Papas. After that, you have the biggest one, Woodstock, 500,000 people in 1969. It's the biggest festival ever organized. People came there to listen to also the artists such as Claude Debussy, Jimi Hendrix, Candy, Jefferson Airplane, are very famous artists for their anti-war movement, songs and concerts, etc. So, and then after that, Woodstock West, people don't really talk about it, I don't know why, but it's not really famous, but they still had 300,000 people. So it means that Woodstock, for example, was the zenith. It was the highest point of the protest at the time. So now a quick review of what I talked about. So first of all, the war is a disaster. Vietnam is a disaster. People wonder why. Why is this all happening? So there's protests. Who protests? The Civil Rights Movement under the leader Martin Luther King, and the students who created the 20,000 people march in Washington DC, and after that a 500,000 people march, which is, as I said, 25 times more in only 4 years. So this is a huge time. Students became, after a while, all the students all together, all the protesters became known as the hippies. The hippies were mothers, students, soldiers' wives, and they all expressed their belief through their clothing, through taking drugs, and through listening to a specific music genre which was called psychedelic rock. So music took them all together to places in the Summer of Love, Monterey Pop Festival, and Woodstock. So people gathered up together to listen to music. So now, my conclusion is that the role of music was that they gathered the people. They gathered the people all together. Music made it possible to actually bring all the people together to one place and show their protest without doing anything special. For example, not fighting, not shouting, not anything. Just sitting there and listening to music, taking drugs, making love. That's the only thing they did, and music made this possible. Music was the only aspect that made it possible for the people to come all together and to express a certain message through what they were saying. So, this is what music did. And,